Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly. It's your friend Rick from Blind, and today we are going to introduce you to Gordon Wintrob, who's the co founder and chief technology officer at Newfront. Prior to Newfront, Gordon attended MIT and founded StackLead, a company that built automated technology to research sales leads. He sold that company to LinkedIn and he became LinkedIn's jobs product, aggregating millions of postings across the web. Now he's at Newfront, which is a modern brokerage transforming the risk management, business insurance, total rewards, and retirement services space through the combination of elite expertise and cutting edge technology. Specializing in more than 20 industries and headquartered in San Francisco, Newfront has offices nationwide and is home to more than 800 employees serving organizations across the US and around the world. So thanks for coming on the show, Gordon.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate you
My
having me
pleasure.
and the great intro.
Hey, if you don't mind, Gordy, I want to jump into this. Wait, for LinkedIn, so you were the guy that started all the job postings?
I can't take credit for starting the
I'll
job
take credit. That's all
postings.
right.
The story there is, I'd started this other company. We went through Y
Mhm.
Combinator back in 2014, and we very serendipitously met someone in product at LinkedIn who was kind of thinking about how to evolve the jobs product. So at the time, the only job postings on LinkedIn were premium postings, ones that recruiters spend a lot of money on. And LinkedIn had this great goal of getting every job posting in the world on LinkedIn, even ones that recruiters, weren't promoting or posting. And so it was kind of the perfect combination, right? We had all this web crawling technology, and so we ended up joining LinkedIn and then using that technology to go out and crawl the web and pull every job posting in the world onto LinkedIn. So when you signed up, if you were a trucker or an IT person or in any other industry, you're in biotech, there'd be hundreds or thousands of jobs that are relevant to you in your area.
Wait, I don't want to blow up your spot. Well, it's too late because you're not at LinkedIn anymore. But so what so that you would just scrape and get those jobs and put it on LinkedIn
Yeah, that's right.
in their job portal or just
Yeah, they're called limited listings. Jack, I know you're from the recruiting world.
yeah, that's what I was
And
curious.
so
Yeah.
most companies will just post jobs through their applicant tracking
Mhm.
system that show up on their careers site. And we wanted to help job seekers be able to find those opportunities. And so we would actually automatically pull those in so you could, as you're just browsing LinkedIn, have access to them. And, I think
Mm.
why I'm really proud of that project is because it did help a lot of job seekers connect with great opportunities.
So,
Yeah, there's some people who are doing that now because same rationale that it's hard to find jobs. So kind of we had this guy Tuck Hoffenfruffer, something like that, who is that's his thing where he has these big job boards and scraping everything to help people get jobs.
Awesome.
now I'm curious, you started at Y Combinator, startup founder, obviously such a rigorous program to get into, but that's not how you started your career. Can you kind of take us through how you got to that point and what it takes to be accepted by Y Combinator?
Sure. Yeah, I kind of I think my early career, we were talking just beforehand, I was heading in a little bit of a different direction. So I've always been into computers my whole life. I started programming on a Texas Instruments TI-83 calculator.
Wow.
I was making a bunch of fun games like Hangman and Snake and figuring out how do you program that in BASIC on the TI calculator. Um, but I was also interested in finance. I saw a lot of really smart people going into that field, a lot of mentors who I really looked up to. And so in college, I was actually on the path to go into investment banking. And all my internships were kind of oriented around that. And it was when I was about to graduate, I was thinking, wait a second, if I go down this path, if I move to New York, I'm going to be sort of losing all of the the computer science that I've been passionate about my whole life. And so I made this really hard pivot, and I said, no, I've got to go to the Bay Area. I've got to, join a early stage tech startup, and kind of make my passion also my career. And that was how I got into tech, and eventually started Stack Lead, and then now working on Newfront, which is we're very excited about, and started back in 2017.
But I
So what made you
understand
decide to
even
do that?
your
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, but I understand even your internship at Goldman Sachs, where you kind of started exploring investment banking, was a bit of a pivot, right? You studied electrical engineering at MIT, so on paper it seemed tech is where you're going to go.
Yeah, it does seem like that. It's funny how you and I think maybe you see that even more now with a lot of the really cool breakthroughs in generative AI. Technology is all about how do you apply it to different areas, right? And so even though I was studying electrical engineering and computer science, I saw, well, in the world of finance, this is a really cool way to apply this knowledge, this analytical thinking, to kind of actually have an impact in the business world. And so, my investment banking career, my short investment banking career, I was interested in something called structured equity, which is sort of being a little bit more analytical and rigorous around some of these maybe more esoteric products that could help companies do things like deal with maybe the risk of a transaction not closing, or the risk of a transaction going through in another country, and then they're exposed to currency changes or things like that.
So it's so interesting. So then, like, you moved over. What
Mhm.
made with why insurance? How did that pop up?
Yeah, so I grew up around insurance.
Hmm.
So when I was growing up, my dad worked at AIG for many years, and I remember he took me and my brother on a couple of really interesting trips when we were little kids. One was this big Asia trip where we went to Hong Kong and Shanghai and Tokyo and a couple other major cities. And I remember seeing these massive AIG signs. And so I was kind of exposed from a young age of, this is a company that it's all around the world. It's absolutely massive. And never really knew how I'd get into it. My dad didn't push it on me or my brother. He kind of just chatted about it around the dinner table. And when I was thinking about what to do next, I got connected to my co-founder, Spike, who's our CEO. And we had this mutual friend who said, "You're the only two people I know interested in insurance." And so that was the initial spark, and we just started chatting, and that's what eventually became Newfront.
Yeah, did he have a connection to insurance, Spike, or?
Yeah, so he came from more of the private equity and finance world,
Mhm.
actually. And he worked at a private equity firm where he had to buy insurance for some of their portfolio companies. So he had experienced the pain in commercial insurance as a buyer. And so he kind of had that lens as we were starting the company about thinking, what is the experience we want to give our customers when they're actually purchasing insurance?
Is that what it is? Like, you're finding the pain point when you buy, and this is institutional, not individuals, I take it.
That's right. So to give you some context on Newfront, what we're building is the modern insurance brokerage, and we're really focused on commercial insurance. So everything that businesses buy. And what's really fascinating about this industry is it's something that's been essentially frozen in time. Even as other large regulated industries, things like banking have changed, or personal insurance have become more modern. Commercial insurance still kind of lives under a rock. And we think not only in terms of what is the client experience, the actual customer buying the insurance, but also what's the experience for the broker, the experienced sales professional who's helping that customer figure out, well, what are the policies should they buy, what are the right amount of coverage or limits. That's where a lot of the pain points occur, because it is such a sort of old school manual industry that really runs on pen and paper.
So you're talking about when you say commercial, so this could be, a building, that you're insuring, or it could run the gamut of any expensive thing that could go wrong that you want to insure. And well, what happened? It's just like old school, like you take out a pen and pay, take it, write down what you're doing, and now you're just using technology to make it quicker, smoother, less expensive? How does it work?
Yeah, totally. So to give you some concrete examples, we work with clients really across industries, but we do focus a lot on tech and life sciences. So we work with about 20% of US unicorns. Those are private technology companies that are valued at more than $1 billion. We also work with large construction firms, real estate firms, uh, manufacturers, you name it. And you, you're really spot on. I mean, it's often a broker will come and meet a CFO, a general counsel, and sort of be scribbling notes down on a napkin, and they're having these really important conversations around risk management or sort of where's the business heading. But then they take this really messy, unstructured data, and they turn around and then they have to go out to the insurance carriers and use that to negotiate with them to get the right policies and the best coverage.
And then with brokers, what happens? Like you're a broker, so now for your client, you're trying to find the best deal and you're shopping it around. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's right. So the way it kind of works at an old school brokerage is that the broker will take all this information, they'll package it up. So they'll probably be sort of jumping between different PDFs, different spreadsheets, and trying to pull everything together almost like like a physical file for the insurance company. And they'll, email that over, they'll talk to the underwriter on the phone. There'll be a bunch of back and forth. And what's crazy about that is you can kind of think of the brokerage as this data processing factory where you're taking all of this unstructured information, this risk data, and you're packaging it up for the insurance markets. The funny thing is people are not very good at sort of this rote, repetitive data entry. It's that stuff that computers are really good at. And so we want to let people focus on where they're great, which is the customer relationship, helping understand, the customer pain point and where the customer is heading. And then use computers to take all of that other, frankly, BS work off of their plate, all of that data wrangling, data translation, data entry, and really streamline and automate things so that a person isn't doing all of that work.
And like no one
Got
thought
it.
about so this doesn't exist, like people didn't do this before, or
No, it's funny. I think it's a little bit of kind of there's a mentality that's let's just do it the way it's always been done. It's sort of it's one of the oldest industries in the world. It touches really every part of the economy. I mean, you think about the Lloyd's of London coffee shop in England. It was kind of the earliest version of this kind of commercial insurance. People would a ship would be going out to deliver some important goods, and they'd write the name of the ship on a board, and someone would literally underwrite under the name of the ship. Oh, I'm willing to take on this much risk of the ship going and sinking. And that was kind of the earliest form of these insurance markets. That was hundreds of years ago, and frankly, a lot of the same terminology, the same concepts are still in use today. It's just amazing how outdated it is.
I mean, Jack, I think my background coming in insurance and insurtech, I think Gordon is being a bit nice in terms of how he's describing the industry. I mean, when you think about brokerages, a lot of it is a broker that is the community guy in town, right? He sponsors the little league team, and he goes to all the games, and that's how he gets a lot of business, right? It's a lot of face to face. It's a lot of relationship, kind of old school sales. Like Gordon mentioned, the pen and paper, the faxes, even. And so I think it's really refreshing where, I think people often underestimate the size and impact of insurance, right? I believe just commercial is what, $900 billion a market alone. And
That's
so
right.
for Gordon to come in and bring technology, how did you tackle that? Because it seems like such an uphill battle, right? A lot of insurance folks, I'm sure they're skeptical of you when you first get in, right? Being the young upshots, almost like the cocky guys that think that they can do everything with tech. Whereas, their line of business, their way of doing things have been working so well. A lot of these guys are, you know, writing millions of dollars, billions of dollars in premiums. Why mess with that is kind of their thinking.
Yeah, Ricky, you hit the nail on the head. we had to be very thoughtful early on in terms of kind of what was our approach. And I think we really took a contrarian bet in 2017 when we started, and that was, there are a lot of companies in the space that I think you would label as insurtechs who were thinking, we want to cut out the middlemen. We want to get rid of the broker. And from the very beginning, we've taken the opposite approach at Newfront. We think that broker, that experienced insurance professional, is really important. They have this extremely valuable relationship with their clients, and we want to bring them technology that really empowers and supercharges what they're doing. So we don't want to get rid of them. If anything, we want to help them do 10 times more, 100 times more than they ever thought they could before, because they have this great platform. And the platform is not only making them more efficient, so in terms of how are they sort of dealing with all this back office work, it's actually how do they give their customers a better experience. So maybe it's bringing more data to the conversation. So explaining to a customer, hey, I'm recommending these limits because this is what your peers are buying, or showing them, hey, I've gone to these carriers and I was able to actually get you this sort of decrease in costs because of how I was able to negotiate with them. It's using that data to really guide the conversation and make it a lot better.
I mean, as you're the co-founder, you're the CTO, the tech guy that has to figure out how to architect these systems and like build that initial kind of product from the ground up. When you have such a big problem like insurance and huge industry, where do you start? Can you walk us through that 2017 kind of moment after you met Spike and what that was even like?
Yeah, so early on was definitely a little bit chaotic. Kind of how do you get started? And we really focused on, well, let's get into business and let's bring on our first broker. And so Spike and I became licensed insurance brokers, and
Wow.
that's what let us create the licensed insurance brokerage in California, and then get all the reciprocal licenses with all the other states. And then we brought on our first broker, Forrest, and it was really about how do we build around Forrest and make him really successful. So it was, literally like, okay, what's the first pain point? The first pain point was actually the insurance application process. It's when a client, their renewal is coming up, let's say it's October 1st. Normally a broker would send them a bunch of PDFs and say, hey, I need you to fill this out so I can send this information over to the carrier. And we realized, well, that's a really crummy experience. It's all of this email back and forth. Let's send a secure link to the client where they can just enter their information once. It feels a lot more like TurboTax. And so that was kind of the first pain point that we solved. And obviously now we've rebuilt hundreds of these workflows and software, but you got to start somewhere. And we started with that first pain point.
And what about the like person to person? Is that still like, do you take that out of the equation? Because like in my mind, as I think Rick pointed out, you view like the local insurance person, but I get you're talking commercial, but are you factoring in the human factor, or like you don't really need that? How's that work?
No, so we think the human factor is more important than ever. If you kind of step into the shoes of a client who's buying insurance, this is a big decision. The risk that they're facing might be something that's absolutely existential to their business. Let's say you're a baker and you're opening a new bakery. The risks of your ovens catching on fire and burning down the building, that would put you out of business, right? You'd be bankrupt. And so those are the sorts of things that insurance helps with. It's those existential risks so that you can focus on what you're great at, what you're passionate about. And so we think that people are really good at sort of walking you through those decisions. And, we really want to help our insurance professionals with those conversations.
So you're not going to be one of those folks that are trying to figure out how to use machine learning and AI to get rid of jobs.
Yeah, I mean,
how are you going to use that technology in your business?
Yeah, we really view it as we can use AI and machine learning to empower people in what they're doing, not try to replace them. And I think there's lots of good examples. I mean, we can start with kind of more of these sort of internal operational side of things. But if you think about this insurance brokerage is having hundreds of these workflows. A lot of the workflows are things like, okay, a broker will open up, a PDF that has some information from an insurance carrier, and they'll have to copy a few pieces of data into our product. And that's a really clunky data entry task. And so increasingly, we're rebuilding those workflows so that instead you just take that PDF and you drag it into the product. We then use a large language model to parse out all the important information. We structure that data. And then the insurance professional is more kind of just guiding the system. They're the human in the loop who are checking, oh yeah, that looks correct. That looks correct. I need to tweak this number. And it's taking workflows that previously took, many hours down to a few minutes.
I love that example because I think, from an engineer listening, admittedly, insurance is probably not first of mind for one of the industries where they want to work, right? But it seems like, well, like in terms of the market, the impact is obviously incredible. And the product itself is so necessary, right? Like you simply cannot do business without insurance.
Yeah.
Are there any other kind of myths that you want to help bust in terms of why technologists should consider a career in insurance or insurtech or financial services?
I think that's, we touched a lot on this idea that it's a great opportunity to empower people with technology and not replace them. I think that's one of the most exciting things that gets me out of bed every day. I do think the other thing is just how people maybe underappreciate how complex of a technical challenge it is. It's really such the schema, the data model of how you represent all risk in the world is very complicated. We need to model everything about a company. It could be a small tech startup. It could be a huge manufacturing firm. It could be a real estate developer that has hundreds of buildings in their portfolio. And it's just kind of this very, very complicated schema that we need to capture. And there's a lot of cool data challenges that come out of that.
All right, hey Gord, let me run this by you and Rick, okay? Because like you say, that's what gets me up out of bed and all that kind of stuff, right? And I can't take credit for this thought process. This is from Scott Galloway. He's an NYU professor. Because like his take on sometimes a career, if you follow your passion, you're going to succeed. But what he says is the inverse, really, is that, and this is kind of what you're doing. So I was like, all right, did you wake up as a little kid and said, hey, I want to be an insurance guy? No, but then you became an insurance guy and you're successful at it and you build, you know what I mean? And then you go to Y Combinator and you're more successful. Now you're passionate about insurance because you're doing well and you're succeeding and you're making money. Like now you're passionate. So it's like the reverse kind of thing that maybe insurance is secondary, but now you love it because that's how you're making all your money and you're doing really well.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I hear what you're saying. I think for me, the thing that, and people have definitely given me this feedback. I think sometimes it can be a positive, sometimes it can be a bit of a negative, but it's having a real bias for action, right? It's thinking like, okay, we've got a problem here. How do we just sort of jump in and start solving it? And it might not be obvious from the beginning. You might think, oh, it's too complicated, or it's always been done that way. But you only start making progress by just getting started, right?
It sounds like you're excited about that. Like you're looking for problems to fix, right? Like I can see, like as you're talking about it, you're lighting up. Like so, that's like a thing. Like you're looking to see, okay, how we can make it better for our customers, right? How we can fix this glitch? How we can kind of get better technology? Is that it? That's kind of keeps driving you
exactly
to get better and better.
And that's what's been so cool about building Newfront. And really, I hope the culture that we've built on the team is, as we get deeper into it, we realize there's more and more of these overlapping problems and lots of opportunities to bring technology to solve them.
See, that's the difference between success and failure. Because I would be the one, oh my God, all these headaches. I can't take all the paperwork.
Pretty reasonable. Yeah.
But, oh my God. But yeah, I guess once you get into it and then it becomes a challenge, right? You get excited to do it. But also here's something else I'm curious about, right? How does this help too? Like Y Combinator has been all over LinkedIn for the last few months because you had the winter, the summer, cohorts. And is there a great help towards a career to be involved with something like that, where you get this very well-known, well-regarded entity that's like, say, gives you the stamp of approval, and then you feel, and that, not only that, but you're part of it. Is that kind of a good help? Does that last? Because you said it was like you started like 2014, whatever. So does that help throughout your career, that you make all these contacts and you meet all these new people that help you propel further? Is that?
Definitely. Yeah. I think YC has just been a humongous force for good in terms of helping founders. It's definitely helped me personally. I think back to my first startup, and YC was just instrumental in saying, hey, you've got a few months before demo day. How do we do everything you can to make that, that one presentation as impactful as possible? How do we help you raise some money afterwards, get your first customers? Really, really was positive. And I love seeing all of the startups that they're backing every year. I mean, I love being part of the community. It's going to those events gets me really fired up. I really love what Gary Tan's doing in San Francisco too. It just, there's a lot of positive energy, and it's awesome to have something like that.
Because he's a big proponent of trying to get people back to San Fran to help restore it to its former glory, right?
That's right.
And Rick's a San Francisco winning in, so he definitely wants to see it getting better.
Selfishly, yes.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that insight, because I think when most people think of YC and Y Combinator or these startup accelerators, they think of, oh, those are only for consumer startups, right? But you came at it with the business side, and people often don't realize that kind of network effect of, well, if you're a business, right, all these other B2B companies, all these other companies can be your B2B prospects and customers early on. And obviously, you're all founders going through the program together. You're going to want to test and try each other's products out. And oftentimes, those stick. And you're getting that real time feedback from folks just like you that can really kind of bring your product much faster and scale your company, I imagine, so much faster even then.
Yeah, and Gordon, so like with the people that you mentioned, the unicorn companies, were they former Y Combinator as well? If not, some of them at least?
Yeah, we're very, very proud that a lot of the unicorns we work with went through YC. A lot of the great, earlier stage companies that are still growing really healthily are also from that community. So yeah, like I said, we love being part of it. I mean, maybe kind of to tie it back a little bit, our driving mission as a company is to de-risk human progress. We really see that's the awesome opportunity in insurance. It's taking those existential risks off of your plate so you can focus on the unique innovation that you're working on. Maybe that's sending rockets into space. Maybe that's developing the next breakthrough cancer treatment. Maybe that's helping teach millions of people. We want to take those other risks off of your plate so you can focus on what you're really special at.
Now, one thing that we really love to focus in on this show is kind of looking through an executive's career story arc and kind of trying to pinpoint those pivotal moments. It sounds like YC was one of them. The second was likely meeting Spike and getting that spark to actually start Newfront, now a unicorn company itself. Are there any other kind of exciting moments that you look back where you can kind of point and say, oh gosh, like this was right when it happened or things started to click?
Yeah, I think back, I mean, this was shortly after meeting Spike, but when we were first starting Newfront, kind of exploring, what exactly are we going to build? Because we had a lot of kind of zany insurance ideas, and we would bounce these ideas off my dad, and he would say,
Can you give an example of like some of the crazy ideas that you first started with?
Oh, a lot of them, one that comes to mind is we were really passionate about cybersecurity insurance, and that's something that we help a lot of our customers with. But we had different ideas on how could you underwrite this risk or offer some sort of new product that wasn't out there, and we would kind of bounce these ideas off my dad, and he was the one who said, "You guys are idiots. You really don't understand how this market works. You need to go talk to brokers, right? Talk to those insurance professionals and see what's a day in the life.
Did he really say that, by the way? Did he, or
that
he
reality
just,
check?
yeah.
He's a pretty straight talker. I mean, he was one of our first first backers, and
Yeah.
he brought together this group of other insurance executives, and we sort of jokingly call them the Shark Tank because
Yeah.
they're not used to writing a 10K check into the seed round of a startup. They're used to like big
Right.
private equity transactions, things like that. But anyways, he was the one who said, go talk to these insurance professionals. And so one of those pivotal moments that I remember was one of the first brokers that we talked to. His name's Jerry, and we just emailed him and we said, hey, Jerry, we found you on, I think we found him on Yelp, and can we buy you coffee and kind of just sit in your office? And he was like, okay, this is like a very weird request, but sure, like what's the downside? And so we sat in this guy's office, and I remember, he had some very sort of difficult call with a client where they had a claim, and he was talking through, okay, we're gonna send this information to this carrier. I want you to send me an email with this, detailing this, this, and this. And he hangs up. So it's maybe a 5-minute call or 10-minute call. And then we saw what happened after that. And what happened was he opened up a filing cabinet. He took out the claim intake form. He's like jotting down notes onto the form. He hands that to his assistant, and she, logs into their system and is typing up notes. It was probably an hour of work for the 10-minute call. And it was just so clear that, they've constructed this kind of Rube Goldberg machine to get work done. And we were like, wow, we could build really good software that would actually make all of that stuff just way, way better for Jerry and how he works with his clients.
Can I ask you this? And I don't mean to be too forward, so don't get mad at me, Gordon.
No, go ahead.
Your dad, from what I understand, was super successful at AIG, right? He was going to be maybe, CEO of AIG at one point, perhaps. And now I think he's at a big alternative investment. Is that good or bad? Does that like put pressure on you, or does it help? Like how, net, do you think it was great to have like a data mentor? Or if you say that's a stupid idea, then you're always worried, is he gonna like look down at your ideas? How, what do you think? Because
no, I think he was amazingly supportive to me and my
yeah.
brother, and really just tried to find ways to give us every opportunity. So I'm really grateful to my dad, and that's one of the things I love about Newfront, frankly, is that it is kind of a cool, like, he wasn't talking a ton about insurance growing up, but this is a cool way that he can bring out some of his knowledge and connections, and we have some great stuff to kind of brainstorm together.
I mean, can we dig in a little bit about the culture that you're building at Newfront? What does that look like, especially on the engineering tech side? What is it like to work at a insurtech brokerage?
Yeah, it's definitely something pretty special, and I talk a lot about this when I'm interviewing product managers and software engineers. It's this idea that you, unlike a lot of tech companies where you ship software and it's sort of like you throw it over the wall, and maybe you're getting some analytics data, or a customer will write in and complain. At Newfront, a lot of our power users, they're sitting next to us, at our office. And so you can ship something, and if you break the site, you're gonna literally hear like, hey, like I think things are down. Like, why is it so slow? And I think that it leads to kind of a certain culture, really a focus on the customer, a focus on what are the pain points. I think one of the cool examples of that is it's a tradition we have on the engineering team called crossing the aisle. And it comes from our first office. We had these 2 rows of desks, and so one side was technology, it was engineering, and the other side was insurance and operations. And so when people had a question, they could literally just swivel their chair and cross that aisle, say, "Hey, like, can you help me? Can you help me with this?" And one of the things was frankly a challenge with COVID was that everyone's distributed, right? And you didn't have that kind of people sitting right side by side. And so we try to keep that tradition alive now when we have every month a shadow session where we will pick, a service team member or a broker and say, hey, we want to actually just shadow you and see what you're doing for an hour. And so a few folks from the engineering, the product team will have this sort of crossing the aisle session just to do some of that shadowing and see, what's going on, what's working well, what's frustrating. And I think a lot of our best product ideas, frankly, come from that hour a month of just shadow time.
Wow, I love how you institutionalized it, right? Because it really forces folks to be close to the customer and really understand kind of how things are happening in real time.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
right.
I mean, I want to go even further and figure out, what is the interview process? You kind of like alluded to this in terms of kind of the culture and what you're looking for. It seems like you're looking for folks that really focus on people that are willing to kind of act like owners and really get in there. Um, what does the interview process look like at Newfront?
Well, it depends a lot on the role. I'd say for a software engineering role, it's maybe uh, what you typically see at a high growth tech company where there's initially a phone screen with a recruiter and you kind of learn a little bit about the company and the culture. There then would be more of a couple of technical screens where you're doing some real coding. Some roles will also have a take-home challenge where you'll be given, a small feature and be asked to implement it. And then during the interview, you'll kind of explain, hey, here's my thought process. Here are the challenges I faced, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the high level. I think maybe something interesting that's unique to Newfront is we have this idea of a values interview. So in every interview loop, there's one dedicated interviewer who they could be from a totally different team, but their job is really just to ask questions around, what are some of the things you've done previously so that we can get a better understanding of, do you sort of work in line with Newfront's values? So it's asking things that are quite open-ended. It might be, tell me about a time where it's something where you consider it to be your most significant accomplishment. And sort of something very open-ended like that. And you kind of talk through, okay, how is the person thinking about this? Are they focused on the other people on the team they were working with? Are they focused on what was the financial impact? It sort of depends, but it's all about figuring out, are they someone who's going to be a good fit for our values here at Newfront and really fit into that culture?
I appreciate that because I think most folks, they don't think of that when they're going through the interview process, right? They really focus on, okay, I got to practice my leak code and make sure I know my structures and all the algorithms and all of that, and really kind of over index on the technical skills or the hard skills. But it really is about stepping back and saying, actually, I need to bring my whole self to work. And it's really a larger focus beyond, sure, we can talk about what you're doing in the role all day, but what is it like to be in that role and to be at that company is something that I think some of our listeners could use that reminder in terms of, oh, I actually need to think about this when I prep for my interview.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's one of those things that you don't maybe it's maybe this is a relief to the listeners that you don't really need to prep for it, right? It's kind of just how you show up in the world and what you care about, what you focus on. If someone isn't a good fit with our values, that doesn't mean they're a bad person. It might just mean, hey, there's a different place that's going to be a better fit for them.
Well, I really appreciate that sneak peek into what it's like to work in insurance at an insurtech startup, and I'll land a job at Newfront. So thanks for giving us this tour, Gordon.
Yeah, thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Gordon.
Thanks, Jack.
Oh, my pleasure.